I caught a guy robbing my place, and before I knew it, he was stealing my heart. But should I feel guilty for falling for the guy who broke into my life? Original poster, u/exigence. 2 years ago, I returned home from my father's funeral. As soon as I opened the door to my apartment, a guy holding a crowbar came out from my kitchen, carrying my TV. I live in the city, so robberies are common. The guy began shouting at me, and in his clumsiness, he dropped my TV and started holding the crowbar like it was a baseball bat. I was so stunned by what was happening that I didn't move. He screamed at me to empty my pockets. From the stress of the past few days, losing my father, I simply started crying. Not out of fear for what was happening, but because this was literally the worst moment of my life. The worst moment, the worst minute, the worst second. Crying hysterically, I gave him my wallet. I just sat on the floor, hugging my knees, and told him through my tears to take whatever you want. He hesitated, looking down at me. Then he dropped my wallet and sat beside me. Immediately, he began to comfort me. He apologized and even put my TV back on the table, telling me it wasn't damaged. He explained that he had lost his job, his mom needed medicine he couldn't afford, and that they were homeless. He told me all this while I just wailed. I cried for my father, who was gone, for my uncertain future, and because my home had been violated in the most violent way. For a good 10 minutes, I sat on the floor with a guy who had every intention of robbing me, and he was telling me that it would be okay and that he was sorry. He begged me not to call the police. Eventually, I just started screaming at him to get out. He ran away so fast that he left the crowbar behind. I threw it after him as he ran down the street. 2 days later, I came home from work and found him sitting in front of my door. I was so terrified that I pulled out my phone, but he had this look on his face. I'm not sure how to describe it. Remorse? Regret? He told me he had told his mom what he'd done, and she made me some soup. He handed me a tiny bowl wrapped in tinfoil. Once again, I was stunned and overwhelmed, so angry that I slapped the bowl out of his hands, and it shattered on the floor. I told him to leave or I would call the police. He left. I remember that he looked upset. I left the soup and the shattered bowl outside my door, almost as a warning for him not to come back. About 3 months later, I got a note in my mail slot from the guy. He told me that his mother had passed away, that he was no longer homeless, and that he had found a job. He wanted to repay me for breaking into my apartment. He even wrote down his address and told me I was welcome to break into his place if I wanted, but that he didn't have much stuff. I was overwhelmed by it all. I threw away the letter, but I remembered his address. One day, out of curiosity, I walked by the building. It was a rundown apartment complex across the city. As I was walking by, I saw him heading to his room. He spotted me and waved. I turned away and left. He ran after me, apologized again, and told me he never meant to do what he did. He even showed me the program from his mother's funeral that he kept in his wallet. It was real, she was real. He was a real person. I don't know why, but I believed him. Slowly, we began to connect as people. I can't fully describe it. After a year of maintaining communication and learning about who he was, he enrolled in a local community college and began taking courses to earn credits before applying to university. I helped him study for his history class a lot. He's great at math and science, though. I never invited him over to my apartment, though. No matter how much I got to know him, I was still afraid of him. And he knew that. He understood that I couldn't trust him. But tonight, we went out for coffee because he said he had an exam in his World Civ class. When I got there, he said he forgot his book. So, we just talked for a bit, laughed, and then he told me he wanted to cook for me. On a whim, I decided to invite him to my apartment. After picking up a few things from the grocery store, he came over. I was so nervous that I was shaking. He noticed, squeezed my hand, and then made dinner. It was amazing. We talked, laughed, and sat on the floor watching a movie on the TV he had once tried to steal. We even joked about it. Then, he told me that he missed his mom. I gave him a hug, and then he left. I don't know what I feel, but I do know that I can't give up on people anymore. Some people just get the short end of life. Maybe things have a way of working themselves out. And I miss my dad, too. Update 1. I am beside myself to log on this morning and see this at the top of this page. I have been a lurker for a few years, but never thought this would happen. Also, to those of you messaging and commenting to confirm the validity of this, I guess it never occurred to me when I posted this that it would sound so ridiculous. It really does, and I don't blame you for thinking it's fake, but it's real. He's real. I'm real. It all happened and is happening right now. Thank you to all who messaged me and commented. And thank you to the 2 people who gave me gold. This is just insane to me. I'm so grateful, so very grateful. Update 2. Sorry for neglecting this, Today has been insane with work and hosting a friend's bridal shower. I want to clarify a few things because I'm getting a lot of messages about many different topics. People are saying I am being too trusting of him after what happened. You're right, I suppose. I mean, I live in the heart of one of the most dangerous cities. My friend was robbed just a few years ago and was actually physically injured because of it. So, me trusting him did not mean giving him a hug after he broke in, it was much more than that. My dad died of a brain aneurysm. He passed away peacefully in his sleep. The thing about my dad was that he was the most generous, kindest man in the world. I know people say that about their parents, but it's true about mine. When I was 4, I remember him giving a ride to 2 guys who had just been released from prison. They had to walk to get where they were going, so my dad picked them up, had them hop in the back of his pickup truck, and took them home. He put his life, and mine, essentially, in the hands of these men who could have hurt us. They didn't, thank God. My dad taught me to be selfless and understanding of the world and people, and I loved him for that. But when I lost him, it shattered me, it turned me into an entirely different person. After my dad died, I became severely depressed and angry. I was angry at everything. I had to take a leave from my job, I teach 2nd grade. All day, I would lie in bed and think about how much I hated God, or whatever higher power, for taking my dad away. Nothing seemed worth it. After the guy, my friend, broke into my apartment, I hated him for a while. I hated my dad for making me so trusting, because I didn't call the cops on the guy. I hated my dad for dying, I hated him for being so incredibly compassionate and better than me. I hated myself for being vulnerable. I just hated everything. The guy who tried to rob me is a person. And, of course, I constantly ask myself when I'm with him, what happens if he tries to hurt me? Or rob me again? But the thing about him is that he knows I'm thinking this, and he constantly tries to reassure me. We have grown together as people, as I mentioned before. There are 2 whole years that I didn't include in this recounting because it would turn into a novel-length post. Do I like him? I don't think so. I don't think he likes me either. I think we both understand, respect, and honor each other for our mutual struggles. We're proud of each other, and we're both guilty of things, me for shutting out my friends, family, and students, and becoming a terrible person after I lost my dad, and him for going to extreme lengths to try to save his mother from experiencing unbearable agony in her final moments. I intend to show him this post. I want him to know. He doesn't have a computer or internet, but I think he'll find this humorous. His story is not mine to tell, how his mother died is not my story to tell, what exactly drove him to pry open my front door with a crowbar is not for me to tell, what happened to his family is not for me to tell. But what is for me to tell is that he is a human, he is flawed, God, he's so flawed. But after knowing him and learning about his life, about his childhood and how he used to be as passionate about school and learning as I was, as he told me, I know that he has his story. I have mine. You have yours. And although I think it's irrelevant, the thought of dating hasn't crossed my mind in the last few years. Was I in relationships before my dad's passing? Yes. One was long-term and had a foreseeable end with an engagement, but things happen. Life happens. I'm meeting with him tomorrow at his work, while he's on break, to give him some old study materials I have from a literature class I took in college. It's also normal, and I'm not afraid. My dad was never afraid, so I shouldn't have to be. I choose not to be. Relevant comment. Probably the best So How'd You Two Meet? Story I've ever heard. Update 3. Hey. A couple of days ago, I posted about how I went on a date with a guy who tried to rob me, along with some small updates. This is just a quick follow-up. Nothing major. Last night, I showed him the post and some of your comments. He was a little apprehensive about this space and the fact that I had shared this with the entire world. But the comments really made him happy. He wanted me to thank you all, and I tried to get him to make a post of his own, but he thinks it's too weird. Plus, he considers himself a bad speller. I just wanted to update everyone with this little, unimportant tidbit. My dad's birthday is in a few weeks. I always have to prepare myself for it year-round, really. But this year is different, because I know I have people to support me, especially a really close, new friend who came, well, I'd like to say out of nowhere, but he really just came out of my kitchen holding a crowbar. One more thing, when I showed him the post, he looked up at me and said, "Wait, it was a date." And I got so embarrassed. Then he laughed and told me he was relieved because he thought it was a date. We haven't talked about anything else along the lines of dating in the future. I just wanted to extend my gratitude, my thanks, and my love, as well as his, to all of you. Thank you, thank you. Update 4. I've been trying to write this for the past 3 months, but I kept getting busy. I truly don't know what to say because so much has happened in the 6 months since I wrote all this down for the first time. I want to say this for myself, to get it off my chest. I cared about him. I cared for him. I did, I can't deny that. In January, right after the new year started, I got a phone call at 2:30 in the morning from him. He was in jail. He and 2 of his friends were arrested for public intoxication and possession of drug paraphernalia. He wanted me to bail him out. I'm a teacher living on a teacher's salary. I said no, I couldn't. That's when things fell apart. Before then, he and I had been incredibly close. We spent Christmas together. I didn't have enough money for a plane ticket home, so I stayed in the city. He came over, we cooked, watched movies. Before Christmas, we spent Thanksgiving together. I helped him study. I helped him get his finances in order. He had no idea how to do taxes or any of the adult stuff, as he put it. But I started noticing I was doing things I didn't normally do. He would come over in the middle of the night, visibly panicked, and ask if he could stay with me. I let him, no questions asked. I stopped asking questions because I wanted to believe that he was good and everything was fine. He started asking me if I'd lie for him, saying I didn't know him if others asked about him. This scared me, but I assumed it was work-related. I wanted to believe it was about his work. He was released from jail about a week later. He didn't talk to me. I called his apartment, nothing. Then, one day after work, I came home to find a woman waiting outside my door. She looked disheveled, wearing a tank top and flip-flops in mid-January in the Northeast. It was cold. As I tried to unlock my door, she started verbally attacking me. She told me to stay away from him, as if she owned him. She accused me of doing something to him and warned that I'd get what's coming. She left, and I was scared out of my mind. Before calling the police, I decided to try his apartment one last time. He answered. I told him about the woman. He apologized and said he was seeing her. He didn't intend for her to come over and interfere. But that led me to another question: how did she know where I lived? And how many others had he told? He hesitated before answering, and I remember that. He just said he was sorry. I immediately packed an overnight bag, grabbed my most valuable belongings, and went to stay in a hotel. I used my credit card, my only in case of emergencies card, because I no longer felt safe, because of him. I came back to my apartment the next day. Everything was fine. He came over to apologize, but I told him to get out. I started crying. When I'm angry, I cry. He tried to hug me, but I remember picking up a piece of wood, from a dismantled IKEA shelf, to protect myself. I demanded to know what he was doing. He told me he was selling. He said he had to do it because he knew people who would hurt him. Lies. I guess. I don't know. I told him to get out and that I never wanted to see him again. He got angry and threatened to come back with his friends. I was racked with guilt for trusting him. He apologized again, saying he was sorry, but I was questioning everything about him. I pushed him out and locked the door. The teaching program I'm a part of rotates teachers in and out of schools across the country. Last year, I put in a request to move across the country to be closer to home. 2 weeks after this encounter with him, I found out that my request was accepted, and I was set to leave in March. In early February, my apartment was broken into and vandalized. At night, he would come and knock on my door. I called the police, but he'd always leave before they arrived. His guys started harassing me. Nothing was ever stolen, just broken. They shattered a glass bottle my dad made for me when I was 6. He knew how much that meant to me. It was destroyed. The week before I left, I saw him outside my building. I called the police. As he was walking toward me, I remember feeling a fiery rage. It was an impassioned, red, angry heat that washed over me. I took my keys, which are on a lanyard, and started hitting him. I ended up cracking his eye socket. When the police questioned him, they realized he was the one harassing me. He was wanted for a myriad of other charges. After he fell down, after I cracked his eye socket with my keys, I started kicking him. I wanted him to die. I really did. Then I thought about what my dad would think. But then I realized, I'm not my dad. I will never be him. I'm different. This is different. People are different. Not all of them are good. But some are. I am good. I am a good person. Right now, I'm sitting in my new apartment in a brand new city. It's warm. Rent is cheaper. I live in a neighborhood of old people. They're nice. They love that I teach kids. It makes them feel safe, I guess. Some days I leave my front door open and let in a breeze. I'm never afraid. The beach is literally a 7-minute walk. I've timed it from my back door. I'm happy. So, I'm putting this to rest. It's done. It's over. I'm tired. I'm posting this and not checking back anymore. I just wanted to tell someone because no one in my personal life even knew this was happening. I still can't believe it happened. But it did. And it's done. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Holy crap. What a crazy insane story. Don't stop being kind and trusting. The world is full of wonderful people and you're one of them. I'm so happy you're in a better place and things are going well. Great story, thanks for sharing. Comment 2. Holy hell, I remember hearing the first part to your story half a year ago and now seeing this is just all too surreal. It's a shame things turned out the way it did. It's a shame he turned out to just be a manipulative psycho who is only in it for his own pleasure. I'm glad you're in a better place though. Cheers, mate. Comment 3. He lost the best thing that ever happened to him, but all you did was lose a tumor. Good for you.